Alrighty, hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Long time no stream. I think it's been about, yeah, it has been 17 days since my last stream and like a month since the last episode of Stream Lore, but we're here, we're back. The ringer on my phone is on, as per usual, and we're here to make some stream. Yeah, we're here to continue Stream Lore. We're gonna be here with Vaush. I feel like I owe you guys a little bit of an explanation to my absence. I've been lining up a summer job, and I got this stupid sore. You can't even see it anymore. I hear my tongue. It prevented me from talking, prevented me from kissing my girlfriend, from eating food that I liked. It sucked. I had it for like 6 days. And yeah, that's what I've been up to. Oh, also, I got some new shirts. Thankfully. My wardrobe was really waning. Anyway, after that brief, weird explanation, we're going to get right into Streamer Lore today. We're going to be looking at Vaush on Tim Pool for the first time on the stream, and for the first time in Streamer Lore, we are going to be putting up our whatever, the person we're surveying, up against somebody else who would be much more critical against them. Oh, except for last time we did on Streamer Lore, we ended up putting up Destiny and Poi. That was cringe. It wasn't necessarily cringe, but it was toxic. There were probably some cringe moments in there. I didn't actually go back and watch. Yeah, that was rough. I don't want to watch more Vaush Destiny content if that's what those two are like. Anyway, I think we'll be here for around 90 minutes today. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a good time. Let me know if the audio balance is good. Oh, also got some water here, and as per usual, I usually try and say the date on these streams. It is a beautiful June 9th, and it is great to be back, folks. Let's skip ahead.
As we were getting ready to go live, we're initially planning on starting by talking about
Oh, also, yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day.
Riots that erupted in Philadelphia last night, because I covered this earlier. And as you know...
and this was recorded on October 27, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I still live there. We've been setting up the new studio in the new space, but I was literally just back in the Philly area.
Gotta make sure my mic is working.
The other day.
And so make sure everything goes well on the first stream back.
It erupted. There was a pickup truck was driving at a high rate of speed, went through a row of cops. A bunch of the cops jumped out of the way, but one got ran over, broke her leg, got taken to the hospital. So
I'm not sure when George Floyd died, but this is probably in response to George Floyd, right?
Pretty serious stuff. But as we were doing this, we got breaking news that the Trump campaign website got hacked.
Like 2020?
And I was like, that's breaking right now. Probably should talk about it. And then it turns out like nothing really happened. It was just like, so we'll briefly talk about it, I suppose, because I thought it was very, very significant. But as there's a ton of people already in the chat, because we are joined today by libertarian socialist, anti-fascist.
Don't say libertarian socialist.
Vaush?
Thanks.
I don't know. I was gonna talk. I planned on, before we went on this episode, I planned on talking a little bit about Tim Pool. I'm not really sure how much I want to do that right now. I think we'll talk about that later. Tim Pool will make me want to talk about him later. He's a very controversial figure, isn't he?
Yeah, just about Vaush. Hey, how you
Vaush.
doing?
Vaush, yeah, there we go.
There you go. And
what's up with Vouch, by the way? So many people do that. I think it's intentional.
Look, we had Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys. I said we'll get somebody from the left in.
Oh, damn. Enrique Tarrio. I literally just finished watching the January 6th hearings, and yeah, Enrique Tarrio was all over that thing. We should watch that later. See, Tim Pool's already got me talking about it. This is something I used to not like Tim Pool until I watched him and Charlie Kirk, and I think I'd only watched Vaush, Tim Pool, and Charlie Kirk. And I think I'd only watched 1 or 2 episodes before, and I just heard a bunch of liberals and leftists talk about him. He just, there are lots of like weird hot takes you see from Tim Pool on TikTok, and like I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but he just says odd things, and he came off to me as one of those right wingers that was like, just asking questions. I'm just asking questions, guys. But to what end? And I initially thought that he was, doing it for profit and sensationalism. But the longer I listen to him, the more convinced I am that he is a good faith operating weirdo. Like me, not a bad faith operating charlatan.
It's very difficult.
But, maybe I'll change my mind. Like I said, I'm just getting to know him, and I think I've only watched like 1, 1.5, 2, at 3 at the most episodes of Timcast. Definitely less than 8 hours.
To get a lot of people on the left, so I appreciate it.
We definitely spend more time with Vaush on stream than I have with Tim Pool. All right, let's get into it now. Thank you for your patience, folks. We've been here for 5 minutes now. We're 2 minutes into the video.
We've been hanging out and talking. I think we're probably gonna have some arguments about the riots, about a ton of stuff. But I just want to say to anybody who thinks that we're going to have like a blood sports style debate, you're not correct. We don't do this. And so I'm just going to tell you right now, fair warning, you're mostly all going to be dissatisfied. I didn't bring on Enrique Tarrio to literally just attack him and get into a big debate with him. I ask him some questions. I challenge him on some of his ideas, and mostly just try to understand him. We're gonna do the same thing with Vaush. Vaush, right? I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. And we're gonna and I think we're gonna have a good insight into just a lot of the things we don't normally get to hear from I guess leftists. Is that appropriate?
Yeah. The real blood sports is the upcoming me versus Enrique Tarrio conversation.
no.
Obviously,
Ooh, that'd be
that would
fiery.
I mean, I'd be down if you wanted to have a debate and like.
See, this is what I like about Tim Pool. Look at him trying to have Enrique Tarrio and Vaush on the stream. Is it for sensationalism or is it for a good faith open debate? The more I get to know Tim Pool, like I said, I think it's more in the latter.
Because I don't debate people.
Good faith debate. I think I'm gonna screw that.
I'll have a discussion. We can talk about stuff.
Enrique actually mentioned, I think, debating with.
I fucking hate this guy. I hate this guy. This is why this guy is, I think, 75 to 80% of the reason why I don't like Tim Pool. I can't even remember what episode. It was one of the clips that I've seen of him. I see clips of this guy just saying the most insane shit, and Tim Pool going, yeah, good question, yeah, good point, interesting. I'm like, this guy just pops off hot takes. I hope we see something here. I don't even know his name. I think I'm being a little bit too harsh on this podcast.
With you.
Really?
Let's get to know it better. Half streamer lord Vaush, half streamer lord Tim Pool, none streamer lord this guy.
Or was it Vaush that he wanted
No,
to debate?
no.
Oh.
Probably
Number one.
Hassan's the.
just
I know
built
we
you
look
up.
so similar,
Yeah.
but
Hassan Piker, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, please subscribe or follow if you're excited for streamer lord Hassan Piker, which will be coming eventually. I think we'll do Hassan next after Vaush.
I'm terrified of flying, so we'll pace them out one at a time. But I'm not
Try and-
principally opposed.
Have your mic right in your mouth and.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
There we go.
There
you
we
go.
go.
Nailing it. There we
Get
go.
better.
Perfect.
So just
I'll
because
move my
the
mic
story
closer.
just broke, I don't want to
There you
just
go, folks.
ignore it. But apparently it's like a big nothing burger.
Okay.
But I do want to show this real quick before we do. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is a Tim Castaro podcast. Of course, Ian.
Yo.
We got Ian here.
What it is?
His name's Ian. We got two Ians on the stream. Vaush's real name's Ian. I learned that. Now you know it.
Lydia is producing, as
I'm
most of
here in
you
the
are
corner.
aware, and I am Tim Pool. And
Indeed.
as you all know,
He doesn't really look like an Ian at all. Looks more like a Jason to me.
Vaush is
It's
our
Vaush
guest.
V.
So we're Vaush V. We're gonna argue about a lot of
Jason? I don't know what that fits.
stuff probably, and we'll
Just not an Ian.
talk about news. But hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. We do the show Monday through Friday live at 8 p.m. And just so everybody knows, we're totally down to have literally anybody come into the studio and have a debate. I know there are some people who are like, Tim, why won't you have the far right on? I'm like, who
Do
said
it.
we wouldn't? Well,
No one said we would.
I interviewed a Soviet general in Ukraine during the Euromaidan stuff. I interviewed a Brazilian gang leader. Well,
See, he's not he can't be sensational. He's just like a crazy weirdo.
look, there are some limits. Like I'm not gonna bring some
Rapists? I
lunatic
don't know.
serial killer into my house.
What about like a?
Good content though.
I mean, in a good way, by the way. Like I'm a
would be
crazy
great.
weirdo.
That'd be
He's
awesome.
strapped to the chair, he's screaming, "I'll kill you!" And I was like, "That's interesting. Why do you want to kill
Why do
me?"
you want to kill
It's
me?
true. Before I came on, there was a possum outside they were going to bring into my place. So I'm not special. It really is.
It's true.
And that also would be good content.
Also
Oh
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
great stuff.
I like the way you think.
Well, let's first do this. This is a breaking story. Trump's campaign website is seized by hackers who claim to have evidence that proves his criminal involvement with foreign actors to make
Yeah,
the
this is-
2020 election.
Nothing burger, right?
Of course, as of right now, his website is back to normal. We checked, and so I saw this, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like something's gonna come. Let's launch with this," and then it's just a big nothing burger. These things happen.
Yeah, every time my site gets hacked by hackers who say they're going to release things, 99% of the time it's nothing.
But the gist of the story is his campaign website was seized by hackers Tuesday. A message reading "This site was seized" appeared briefly on the homepage of DonaldJTrump.com before the website was taken offline.
Even like the global community of hackers that was threatening to significantly harass Russia for invading Ukraine, like that, at least in the news, it hasn't amounted to much. Although I also heard that the frickin' United States Cyber Command is now conducting offensive, quote-unquote offensive, cyber-based operations in Russia, or on Russia. No, in Russia. I don't know how you'd refer to it. Or in Ukraine, which is too escalatory for my taste.
Line completely just after 7:20 p.m. The message continued that the world has had enough of fake news spreaded daily by the president. It is time to allow the world to know the truth. The hackers behind the stunt claimed to have compromised multiple of the president's devices. Seems like grammatical errors aren't unique to the hackers. Daily Mail, come on, get a copy
Come
editor.
on, guys.
That gave them full access to Trump and his relatives, along with access to confidential information. Strictly classified information is exposed, proving that the Trump government is involved in the origins of the coronavirus, the Post read. We have evidence that completely discredits Mr. Trump as president, proving his criminal involvement and cooperation with foreign actors manipulating the 2020 elections. The U.S. citizens have no choice. Okay. It's a nothing burger. I almost feel kind of dumb that we even decided to bring it up because
No,
I
I
was
like
like, it was like breaking news, and I'm like, oh wow, we got what's going on?
I think you've got it though. Same typos in the actual Daily Mail writing end of the thing. Maybe they did it.
The
Said
Daily
that-
You're probably
to
right.
get
Oh.
yeah,
Daily
the
Mail.
inside scoop.
Yeah,
on
man.
There
that.
it is.
That makes perfect sense.
We've busted. Nah,
They're
you know,
making the news.
That's
I
right,
got
they
to
really
be honest.
are.
Daily Mail needs to hire some copy editors. So like, you know, they have grammatical errors all the time.
I don't read the Daily Mail. Neither should you.
Of all the outlets, you know, there's that. But so look, that's the gist of it.
So, Tim,
Not because it's ideological or political perspective, by the way. I know very little about those two things. It's just I don't think I've ever been made richer intellectually, culturally, or spiritually by reading a Daily Mail article. Never has value been added to my life by a Daily Mail article. Only time been taken away.
was it true what they were saying that they were trying to blame Trump for the COVID crisis? What's going on there?
What, the hackers?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard that they were trying to blame Trump for this, and they were like, "This is a big deal."
I mentioned earlier, is the U.S. government and the Chinese government, are all these governments working together to create a bioweapon in a Chinese lab that then got out?
Love it from Ian. Love it from Ian.
That's
And
like a
then Tim
movie
said-
script, dude.
Yeah.
That'd be a
That's
good
just
one, though.
No, I'm 100% behind it.
Yes, I
what
like
I
it.
wanna know-
Really?
no, the incorrect. Well, half. Well, the bad grammar kind of leaves like involved in the origins. I mean, I think Trump flubbed the COVID response, sure, but involved in creating coronavirus, I don't know. Like that'd be a pretty sensational claim, right? It's pretty ridiculous. Maybe they saw Borat, they were inspired, you know, creative flourish, but I don't know. Maybe
could explain why the
That'd be wild.
grammar was wrong.
they made
Let's
it,
get to
put
the
it in
beef.
China, so they could blame China.
I've heard that it wasn't just a Chinese company working out of that lab, like other.
Where did you hear this?
I read it on the.
Ah,
internet.
see, Tim. See, I was too. I've been a victim. I've been a victim of like social media sensationalization. This show seems like way less crazy than I
Okay.
heard
I read that it
and
was
seen.
like
The Ian.
some company that Fauci was involved with was working at the
Oh,
lab in
no.
Wuhan.
I do.
That's a
Uh,
lot.
I don't have the documents
That's a
in front
lot,
of me.
man.
Yeah,
I give
yeah,
up.
yeah.
I met-
But
I met Fauci. He admitted to it, though. It's true.
Oh, it's
Oh,
true.
really?
yeah.
Oh, snap.
So well, let's dive in. You
Cool,
just
let's
said
get
you
in there,
think
yeah.
Trump flubbed the response.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, sweet. Now we're getting to the beef. Also, another great thing about the Tim Pool podcast, Timcast. Another great thing about Timcast is 7 minutes and 8 minutes in, we're already getting to the beef.
I mean, one of the problems is we don't.
And
actually-
also, 4-hour episode. Awesome. Love it. We're not going to be here for 4 hours, obviously. All my reactions are double the length of these videos. And I'm not going to stream with Vaush for 8 hours. I can't subject myself to that. And I don't expect you to stand it either. So I think we'll be doing a multi-part, a half-part episode here at least.
have a metric for knowing what success looks like. Every pandemic response is
Absolutely.
unique, you know.
Excuse me,
Would
folks.
Hillary Clinton have done better or worse? The fact of the matter is America is its own country. No other country is a perfect comparison. We also have a very decentralized government. States are given a lot of autonomy when it comes to responses, which can be a downside when it comes to stuff like this. I think there were a lot of things that he did wrong, from a sort of habitual tendency to downplay the severity of the virus.
I have words to say about the response from the American and Canadian federal governments to COVID-19, and those words will be reserved for written form, and the outline of that response, or my critique to their response, isn't really going to be elucidated in this episode, no matter how far they get into it. I will call balls and strikes on what they're saying, obviously, but like, don't expect me to drop out my grand critique of how I would respond to the coronavirus differently. But await it. Someday. That's a really, I've thought a lot about it, like hundreds of hours at least, on how you could make a libertarian response to the coronavirus without getting fired, like unelected, and by saving the maximum amount of people as possible. And it's a really tough intellectual question. I'll hopefully, if I produce a sufficient answer, I'll be able to share it with you. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
We know, of course, that he was informed of its severity but didn't want people to panic, which seems like it was an effort to keep stock investors from sort of, you know, hard selling, which may or may not have worked. We know, of course, there was a
I think I agree with Vaush there.
crash later anyway. But the thing that bothers me the most about the whole response is that I don't actually think there's a metric that Republicans would like a
Oh, it's
lot.
October 2020, so it's 5 months into the pandemic right now. Interesting. It'll be interesting to revisit it in this way.
Where they would say that's too many deaths, because right now it's at 225,000 ish, and I feel like, and Trump's saying, well, you know,
Oh,
they said it was gonna be
200,000 people already in 5 months. I didn't know that.
2 million, which was the estimate.
Americans,
Nothing
I
was
believe.
done. So what if it had hit 1 million?
Oh, also, I'll turn captions on. I'm sorry about that, folks. Oh, there's no captions. There's not even auto-generated captions. I'm sorry, I'm not a professional streamer like Hassan. He has that thing that lets him put subtitles in any one of his videos. Maybe I'll consider getting that plugin. If I get 100 followers, maybe I'll get that plugin.
They say, well, that's half of what was expected. If it hit 2 million, would Trump have said, well, that's exactly what they said was going to happen?
To
I
be
don't
fair,
know.
you could say the same thing about the Democrats. Or, you know, if it's right versus left, the Democrats would not have accepted any number at all.
Oh, I mean, and if they were in power, I'd be perfectly willing to criticize for them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, Trump has had, his hands have covered this whole thing.
It's true, but it feels like then the real issue is, do you like Trump or not? I mean, look, 225,000 is really, really bad. It's horrifying, right? And I mean, even Trump has said that. We don't know what it could have been or would have been. There's no metric for success, which you pointed out. So it's either do you trust him, or do you like him, or do you not?
Well, there are things that he did that I'm reasonably sure, like a Hillary Clinton. And by the way, please, for everyone, I don't like Hillary Clinton. I never, we can write that on my tombstone.
What about Joe
Nobody
Biden?
does.
No. Though I'll admit, I do like him more than Hillary Clinton. I think he is marginally more
I'll give
likable
you
Not as
that.
bad,
than
yeah.
Hillary
I'm with
Clinton.
you
Yeah.
there.
Hillary
Hillary
Clinton is
is-
the bottom of the barrel, man.
Yeah.
Right,
She's
right.
really
So
bad.
Yep.
we're only nope.
Just replace the demon energy with incompetence, and you have the difference between Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton.
Where to go but up.
That's
Oh,
right.
God.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Oh,
yeah,
spirit.
with Trump, when it comes to stuff like, for example, downplaying the severity of the virus, I feel like Democrats would have done that to an extent. But when it comes to stuff like habitually like ignoring masks, or like sort of arguing with Fauci back and forth to the point where Fauci now needs a security detail to go in his runs because there are a lot of far right groups who think that he's
Democrats would totally have hit us with the federal mask mandate. I think, how long did it take Joe Biden to implement a federal mask mandate?
trying to lock down the whole country, with him sort of promoting the anti.
That's an early difference in their response.
We're taking back the respective states, which has led to additional threats of violence. I feel like stuff like that refers to a particular kind of far-right populism that the Democrats don't have the ability to tap into. You know?
What do you mean?
I don't think the Democrats really have the same base of fanatical support in the way that the Trump supporters do. They have, now there are like K-Hive lunatics, and those people exist and they're real, but I feel like their antagonism is more directed at sort of chauvinism or anti-progressivism, or just against any candidate their preferred candidate doesn't like, but this like hardcore ultra-nationalist rejection of a national response to COVID. That, I think, is a particular to the Trump fandom.
What
I would say that Republicans and Democrats, or the left and the right, have equal partisan rapidity. I would just say that Republicans are much better at supporting things, or going against, or sorry, supporting things, and Democrats are much better at arguing about supporting things.
like what right-wing groups are engaging in this kind of violence?
Fareed Zakaria is the first person I heard this from. I can't remember who said it, but it's absolute genius. It's Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love.
and going after people.
Well, the violence is fairly, violence, like political violence, is always going to be a fairly small percentage of the actual harm done here. No political group could ever do harm to rival the 225,000 dead, you know?
Right.
But we tend to wipe that stuff under the rug. This is one of the criticisms that I have as a libertarian socialist, like with the general system that we live in, you know? We'll say, like, news media will focus, a terrorist attack, 7 dead. That's horrible, of course. But at the same time, you know, pharmaceutical companies are pushing doctors to give unneeded opiates to people, and in the same
Yes.
period of time, 13,000 people might die. But that's a statistic. That's not a news story. That just keeps happening. So what I'm worried about is
Didn't Stalin say that a single death is a tragedy and a million deaths is a statistic? That's funny.
the actual political violence. It's about the attitudes we've taken that have allowed COVID to continue to this point. Just today, Trump said, as one of his campaign achievements prior to the election, conquering COVID-19. On Saturday, highest recorded number of cases in the history of the country in a single day.
There-
Horrifying.
And Mike Pence has said, I think he said during the debate, he tweeted it and deleted the tweet, that Trump locked everything down, which is not the case. There's a lot of complicated stuff here because we're going now from COVID, we're getting into political violence. So I think the simple point I can make, which I did, I guess, is when it comes to the COVID response, there's nothing to base it off of. For me, I'm kind of like, okay, well, early on, Trump took action, very early on, like it was in January, to
Banning travel from China, right? This is where we're about to get. This is like the only thing that the right wing had to signal Trump's willingness to respond to the disease early is banning travel from China.
form the task force to
Oh!
suspend most, to
Damn it.
restrict most travel. There was
Oh!
cases in which people could travel from China,
Yeah.
eventually to Europe.
That's
and
how it's
Anthony-
done, folks. That's how it's done. Okay. I should be bragging about how I predicted that, but that made me happy.
Fauci in March said no one could have done it better. So that was the early response. Dr. Fauci said, don't wear masks. We had, who was the
He did say that. What the hell?
Surgeon General guy? Don't wear masks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
They both did. They tweeted about it. Fauci is now saying it was a mistake for him to say not to wear masks. There's a video that
Oh, I know I said I wasn't going to get into the overarching response, but it's so signals. Like, people got... The fact that people spent so long arguing about Fauci really surprises me when he revealed his thinking so evidently in that first part of the pandemic with that first basic wedge issue, with that first issue of masking about whether or not Americans should do it in the opening stages of the pandemic. Fauci said that Americans should not mask early in the pandemic, like in a hearing in front of Congress, or at least in front of like national audience and elected officials, maybe not in front of Congress itself. And when he reversed that statement, his explanation was that masks were so highly in demand that healthcare workers were not able to get them, and healthcare workers needed them more than the general population. And so in that instance, it was okay to tell the public not to wear masks so that healthcare workers who needed them more would have access to them. And like that explains everything you need to know about Fauci's decision. Sorry, all of Fauci's decisions. It's like he chooses his ability to control the spread of the virus more, or he thinks that controlling the spread of the virus is more important than keeping Americans accurately informed about how the virus spreads. And he demonstrated that over and over again. He's more willing to control the virus than accurately inform Americans about how it spreads. And yeah, the same premise and conclusion that went into that decision not to inform Americans accurately about whether they should wear masks at the beginning of the pandemic was repeated over and over again with gain-of-function research, the origins of COVID-19. It was just unification of the narrative and control of the disease. And he did this for, like, good reasons, hypothetically, right? He's trying to maximally, as a manager of society, reduce the amount of deaths. And if you want to tell a white lie to reduce the amount of deaths, then it's like that's a really justifiable thing to do. Like, it's a very justifiable thing for a public official to do. It's not what I would have done. Especially in Fauci's position, I would say that keeping the public accurately informed is your highest duty. And he advocated that duty right there, and he advocated it over and over again throughout the pandemic. I wish he didn't do that. If you need healthcare workers to have masks, the solution is to ask Americans not to wear masks, or not go on the television and say that they don't need masks, or do one of 100 other things. It's not go on television and tell Americans that they shouldn't wear masks, because right then, we're less than a month. No, we're over a month. We're less than 6 months into the pandemic, and we're already creating trust issues between the people and their government. And no wonder people don't trust the government or public health agencies anymore to tell them what's best for them, because they stopped doing it. Oh God. Oh no, for a second there. We're 13 minutes into the video and 25 minutes into the stream. For a second there, I thought we were like 5 minutes into the video and 25 minutes into the stream. Okay, we're good. All right, thanks for being here, folks. I hope you're enjoying this chat that we're having.
the Republicans put out, where you've got
Also, I hope I didn't horrifically embarrass myself or piss you off there.
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden criticizing things Trump has said, and then they show that was Fauci was the one advising, like Fauci was the one saying it publicly. So in this capacity, I've been covering this since it started, and I remember Anthony Fauci saying Trump is doing the best. I don't think anyone could do anything better. Now we're several months on. We're getting close to election, and all of a sudden everyone's saying Trump has done a miserable job.
Well, to be fair, it's not all of a sudden. I mean, there have been points where Fauci's...
I would say that was much more Fauci being a team player, which, like, is another thing that's super important when you're in his role and especially when you have such high contact with such a difficult to manage personality like the president, like the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, saying things like that, like it's probably much more strategic appeasement than it is critical appraisement of his handling of the situation. Although I don't know when that statement was made.
I disagree, by the way. I think initially Fauci's arguing you don't need to use masks was, I mean, the logic he used there was that he was trying to disincentivize the purchase of PPE that otherwise needed to go
I did it again.
to medical professionals.
Yes.
And I think it's irresponsible to put that out saying masks aren't effective or we don't know masks are effective.
Look at me and Vaush agreeing.
I think a more responsible way would have been to sort of implore Americans to be responsible with their consumerism, you know?
You know the weirdest thing about it is, though? Early on, conservatives are the ones like, I'm going to go buy masks. I was getting messaged by people like, hey, don't listen to Fauci, go buy your mask.
I remember.
Because
And
they're
now all of a sudden it's
contrarians.
Yeah, exactly.
but it's both. Like you had Democrats saying don't wear masks, and the conservatives saying wear masks. Then it flipped at some point, and now it's the Democrats, or
Well,
I should say the left or whatever it is.
I don't think it was that unanimous.
me.
I think that for the most part, people were on board with wearing masks, and there was a brief period where we were very concerned.
Oh, also, yeah, my girlfriend's dad's dog is here. I don't know if you can hear him in the background. General, hello. Very good boy. He's lying down on that dog bed over there.
Making sure there was enough materials available for the for the hospitals and for the nurses and what have you. But even early on, and Fauci's in a difficult position here because I have a strong feeling that if Fauci was too critical of the president, he would be replaced for somebody less so. So Fauci,
Like Dr. Atlas.
yeah. So if Fauci praises the president, there's kind of like that. Okay, how much of this is like the kid getting patted on the shoulder by the teacher, and how much of this is like a real political assessment? You know, I don't know. I just think
Look at me and Vaush agreeing again. Oh, muted. Sorry, folks.
to apply. With regards to the early response, though, with Trump, though, we know that he defunded the CDC. He eliminated Obama's pandemic response team. He pulled the 44 researchers out of Wuhan who were supposed to investigate the origins of that virus. And while he did stop travel from China quickly, he did basically nothing for the next month before stopping it from Europe, by which point I think we now know it was pretty much too late.
What should he have done?
I think that
Great question, Tim. Let's hear it, Vaush.
and I think that and he says this now like Biden called me xenophobic for locking down China, which is not true. Biden called him
Pretty sure that is true, actually.
xenophobic, but also
But he was responding to Trump's tweet.
sure, but that's because Trump is pretty xenophobic when it comes to China. If you can lock down China without it being like this weird nationalist condemnation of China, you know, you can just say like, oh, they're going through their own stuff right now. What could he have done? I think obviously a lockdown from Europe faster would have been preferable. I think regardless of what Fauci said, you know, once it was known that masks were available for everyone, that the PPE line was secure, he should have been very on board with promoting their use instead of like tacitly supporting the anti-lockdown,
So, like I said, I could do it here. I could like try and unfold the outline of what is currently like written as the libertarian response to the opening of like a COVID-19 pandemic, but I'm not going to do that because it's not finished. I don't feel confident doing that. It's my first stream in 20 days, and my response, even the outline of the response, is incomplete. So like I said, we're just calling balls and strikes here.
anti-masker protests with his tweets. And most importantly, I think he should have laid out a national plan to help states, to guide states, to give the money necessary.
Let's hear that again.
They're going through their own stuff right now. What could he have done? I think obviously a lockdown from Europe faster would have been preferable. I think regardless of what Fauci said, you know, once it was known that masks were available for everyone, that the PPE line was secure, he should have been very on board with promoting their use instead of like tacitly supporting the anti-lockdown, anti-masker protests with his tweets. And most importantly, I think he should have laid out a national plan to help states, to guide states, to give the money necessary.
He did.
To help them. Well, he kind of held it over some of their heads. It was
Well,
like
there was the 3-phase plan that he launched earlier in the year of like what to do and how to do it, and then he did this press conference where it was like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Here's what you need. I'm the president. I can't control the states. Now it's up to the governors.
sure, but he can though.
So, super important part. What I will say, super important part. Definitely something the president can do and should have done if he didn't. And honestly, this is very basic. Trump probably did this. Is use the federal government to ensure that the states have blank checks to detect and respond to the disease. And I think that Trump did that. The federal government writing blank checks to the states is something that it's really good at, even on autopilot.
Like
Or should I say the executive branch? No, I should say the federal government.
you can do a national mandate. You can order national distribution of resources, and it feels like, and if we get down to the dates, it gets particular here. But there were times when it felt like he was like blackmailing states with support. Like, oh yeah, I'll give you this.
Government does this all. The federal government does this to the state governments all the time.
Yes, I'll give you this. Your hospitals need. I'll give you these resources. But you're doing so terribly lately. Just recently, he said. I think this was in one of the debates. You'll have to forgive me if I don't remember the exact source. He said that he didn't care so much about aid for some of the stimulus deals because they would have gone to high crime Democrat cities. And what this suggests to me is the partisanship of a president who is going to give preferential treatment to bases of support that he knows will vote for him. Doesn't really care so much about other groups.
I respect your point. I think it's complicated in terms of Trump's ability to.
I would just go as far to say that both presidents would distribute aid unethically. Like Joe Biden and Donald Trump will both use government stimulus money to shore up their support. I read a New York Times article. I think it was from the New York Times recently that I think said that aid under the Biden administration has gone disproportionately to Democratic states and cities.
Accurately and charismatically convey an idea, I would say.
And by the way, I think Republican states and cities have disproportionately high levels of COVID because they're older.
He lacks that substantially. But one of the issues with giving money to a lot of these states, whether he's
though Democrats live in more populous areas, it's not to say.
allowed to do it, there's going to be a lawsuit.
Like who deserves it more? It should probably be distributed irrespective of ideological position, which Vaush and Tim both agree with, and Trump and Biden would both agree with if they were in front of us. But definitely not in practice. Both of them, I think.
You've got these jurisdictions, because we'll now move into sort of the political violence stuff when we can get into what's going on in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You've got these jurisdictions that are cutting people loose over and over and over again, and the riots keep going. Mm-hmm. So why should I, as somebody who is, I pay taxes in a state not having these problems, why should I have those federal tax dollars go to a state that's just dumping it into a sinkhole? So now what we have states that have a budget crisis, notably New York is a really good example. Cuomo said, I believe it was last year, God help us if the rich leave. Then you get Ocasio-Cortez leading a protest in the financial district, which triggers, I guess it was a catalyst for Amazon saying...
This is a terrible argument from Tim, by the way. If his argument is that because blue states are run bad, they don't deserve blank checks for disease pandemic response, that's a terrible argument. It's like, you're going to spend a lot more money on pandemic response in your state if you don't spend money on pandemic response in every state.
We don't want to bring our 20 to 40,000 jobs here, which is $30 billion over a decade. So now you've got New York City in a budget crisis, and then they go to Trump and say, bail us out. And then Trump says, no. And particularly because you've defunded $1 billion from your police, you had widespread rioting and looting that wasn't taken care of.
America spends billions of dollars on the police. Like, I would definitely say, probably, would I say over 100 billion? Probably less than 100 billion, but billions, I'd say safely. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Taxpayer dollars to put a political message in the street. Why should federal tax dollars go towards what New York is doing when they're acting extremely irresponsibly?
Well, I think there are a lot of issues being conflated here. First of all, if we just look broadly at like a state level,
123 billion on policing and 82 billion on corrections. Only 82 billion on corrections? That cannot be right. Like corrections being no. I'm thinking of like incarceration. There's no way that the United States only spends 82 billion to incarcerate that high percentage of its population. And also 50 billion on courts, which we should dramatically increase, perhaps double, triple. We need a much more judicious and efficient legal system, in my opinion, anyway.
well, we know
In Canada and the United States.
Underperform when it comes to the investment they need from the federal government as opposed to what they pay in taxes. In large part because red states tend to have a smaller portion of their population in big cities, which tend to be more efficient economically. But then, like you say, so New York's in a tiff, as it is, undeniably. And like Ocasio-Cortez and the marches and the protests, the BLM protests have caused an amount of damage which is infinitesimal compared to like, say for example, the amount of money that the New York City Police Department spends every year on settlements from police brutality or other about $1 billion, a quarter.
I missed that.
Like they need from the federal government as opposed to what they pay in taxes. In large part because red states tend to have a smaller portion of their population in big cities, which tend to be more efficient economically. But then, like you say, so New York's in a tiff, as it is, undeniably. And like Ocasio-Cortez and the marches and the protests, the BLM protests have caused an amount of damage which is infinitesimal compared to like, say for example, the amount of money that the New York City Police Department spends every year on settlements from police brutality or other about $1 billion, a quarter billion a year, which exceeds the damage done by any of the protests. And
First of all, keep in mind this is October of 2020, so we remember we all remember like the BLM riots, like quote unquote we. That's like more of a summer of 2020 thing, right? So is that all over? I believe that yeah, the Foundation for Economic Education published. It's not like a paper or a report. Like this is a journalistic organization. I know they have a very fancy name. Uh, Published a report or an article saying that the BLM riots were the most expensive uh in terms of public damage since in American history, since the frickin' MLK's assassination, since every single race riot, since the LA riots, since Jacob Blake, since like everything that happened in the wake of George Floyd. That so much damage occurred. Although that just goes to show you how much money the New York Police Department spends on useless shit and settlements for screwing up its job.
That's an every year thing, not a.
Like I would just say that Vaush is minimizing the cost of the BLM protests. I'm not trying to underestimate the amount of settlements that the NYPD pays for fucking up its job, which I'm sure it does regularly.
An exorbitant, like once in a half century civil rights protest thing. When we're talking about the reason why New York is struggling right now, it's undeniably because of the impact of COVID. And that, I mean, that's hurting everyone. New York is a massive city, which means that its supply lines and its industries are going to be more on the razor's edge when it comes to their ability to
Lots of things were going wrong in New York City before COVID-19.
with the population. Like a farm in a bad economy can hold itself for a while, but 8 million people in a dense urban network needs a lot of support. And I just, when it comes to like why should I help these people? I mean, I understand the frustration, I guess. I mean, I grew up in California.
Hold on. Not so much why should I help these people. I totally understand. People of New York need help for sure. It's more of if I give money to the city, to the government, are they going to light it on fire? Is it actually going to go to help the people, or are they just burning money?
Well, I haven't looked at their budget registry for the past. I imagine that most of it goes to people, but I mean, when it comes to, you said defunding the police. I mean, that would.
I don't know.
less money.
I don't know where Timcast is shot. Virginia I think maybe I heard that earlier, but I'm pretty sure that New York State might contribute a higher percentage of federal government's revenue than wherever Tim Pool is resident of. Isn't New York one of the highest tax contributing states in the union? Could be wrong about that, by the way. I don't know which states contribute the most tax to the federal government in the union.
Going towards.
Yeah.
It makes sense that New York would be up there. It's one of the most 10 populous states. It's one of the highest, if not the highest GDP per capita compared to like Texas or California, right?
High, powerful institutions in that.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, man. Oh, yeah, you're back. Sorry, long time no see. I'm really glad you're here. How's your day going? Oh, wait, no. Is this your first time? No. You're not following me, but you have 8 messages in the chat. I'm glad you're here. How's your day going?
In that city, so I feel like if anything, that would aid in the responsible allocation of those funds.
What you been up to, man? I'm surprised that you're back here and you don't follow the stream.
What we're talking about right now, ultimately, is how much do you trust city governments to support their people? And my answer, unequivocally, would be I absolutely do not. But I don't think the solution to that is denying them funds. I think that's the solution to that is a grassroots organization or network or uprising that tries to make our government more accountable to its own people.
Yeah, Ian. It's been a while since you've been here. You're the only other person in this stream.
Yeah, like a blockchain or some sort of database that shows where the money went.
It's no transparency in our cities.
Oh, how's the audio balance on the stream while you're here, man? Is it good? Vaush too loud? Am I too loud?
Like absolute 100%. Everyone should believe in that.
I don't think these cities have done a good job at all. I think we are seeing a lot of problems with gross mismanagement. And even before COVID and before the riots, New York was in trouble. That's why I brought up Cuomo saying, God help us if the rich leave.
Doesn't that suck, though?
Like they're doing a terrible job?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, again, this could be my libertarian leaning here. I just don't like the fact that, like, cities, in order to function properly, have to suck up to big corporations in the way they currently do. Now, I understand, of course, business is a part of how cities operate. That's how life is. But it feels very often that politicians are more interested in levying the money that they get to suck up to these corporations than they are using it for their people. Stadiums being a big part of
How do you want to solve this problem, Vaush?
that,
Well,
Like,
so I don't like Amazon, man. And yeah, I agree with you for the most part. Politicians sucking up to corporations is a problem. It's a lot of what we're seeing now, and we've seen over the past several decades, which has led to the erosion of the manufacturing base in this country. But I digress.
Also, you gotta be Canadian, right? Hoser for life with that username. Where you from, man? If you don't mind me asking.
Where does the money come from? You know, the government doesn't. It runs the post office, I guess. What other like actual services does the
yes,
government have
yeah.
in terms of giving a service like and making money? It's the post office, I guess.
Apart from taxes.
So the government.
Manitoban. I'm Albertan.
Uh,
If you can't already tell, I feel like I have a really strong Alberta vibe.
the government doesn't generate revenue
Anyway, I'm glad you're here. I hope you have a good day, and I'm glad you're back.
in the sense that like a business.
Thanks for
The
tuning in.
government taxes the existing market.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah, and audio balance, good.
Only the post office actually creates an exchange medium for the government where people can exchange currency or whatever. Maybe I'm forgetting something obvious.
Tolls? You're talking about the
Oh,
federal government?
What the fuck are we talking about? Sounds like we are grossly misunderstanding the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution.
It runs the post office, I guess. What other like I don't like Amazon, man. And yeah, I agree with you for the most part.
Surprised you even remember me, actually. I pay close attention to the few people that tune into the stream. Thank you for trying to help me find the political philosophy of the future.
Politicians sucking up to corporations is a problem. It's a lot of what we're seeing now, and we've seen over the past several decades, which has led to the
Please consider following and checking out my YouTube channel, where you can look at some political essays about Alberta. Yeah, man, if you're interested, I started writing a political platform about Alberta. First episode is about the Alberta oil industry. Yeah, check it out. Also, if you want to learn more about my politics, I have a political survey up there too. I took the 8 Values political test, so you can learn a little bit more about me if that makes it easier for you to subscribe or follow me on YouTube or Twitch. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, I'll stop pitching you now.
erosion of the manufacturing base in this country, but I digress. Where does the money come from? You know, the government doesn't. It runs the post office, I guess. What other like actual services does the government have in terms of giving a service like and making money? It's the post office.
Oh, what?
I guess.
What are we doing?
So the government doesn't generate revenue in the sense that like a business, the government taxes the existing market.
Yeah.
I think only the post office actually creates an exchange medium for the government where people can exchange currency or whatever. Maybe I'm forgetting something obvious.
Tolls? You're talking about the federal
Yeah, I have like. What do you mean? Are you saying that the federal government is the only the postal service is the only non-tax revenue generating? Are you saying the postal service is the only sector of the government that doesn't fund itself on taxes? I don't even know what he's talking about. I can't even literally formulate what Dimple is trying to reference here.
government?
What I'm saying is like, if Amazon comes into New York, they're bringing currency in that people then trade with Amazon, and then the government takes pieces of that. And then it says, we're going to take this much, and then we're going to allocate it to fixing certain things. And I got no problem with that. But that's why they need Amazon.
Sure,
or they need these companies.
But ultimately, it is the people who vote politicians in, not corporations. I think that
I don't know what the heck that was.
because we don't treat other like interest groups the same way. For example, here's another thing essential to the functioning of a society: teachers. We literally need them. Absolutely, we do. And yet, teachers' unions, while powerful in slim areas, teachers are constantly getting their budgets cut. Schools are constantly getting defunded, despite this essential element of a functioning society being something that we need to function in a modern tech-based economy. They get like no relative power. Corporations get everything when it comes to the delegation of interest from politicians. You know,
I think you're right, but I think we need one of the problems with government is that what do you do when it goes bad? When the government programs are no longer working properly, when the teachers are no longer teaching, when the schools are broken, do we just keep putting money into it, keep spending tax, or do we finally cut it off and say, we got to shut it down, turn it off, turn it back on again, because whatever we're doing isn't working?
sure, but denying New York City money during a pandemic isn't going to functionally change the way its government operates. It's only going to hurt people. I think that, and also just from a functional perspective, it also bolsters democratic political will. If you're not interested in seeing that happen, seeing the president like hold his hands up and let cities like wilt because of some presumption of poor city management, it's certainly not just New York.
What's my opinion on Rebel Media? First of all, I would not say I have given Rebel Media a fair shake over the years. Like, I would say I've listened to less than 5 hours of Rebel Media. But I would also say that I've like really tried to. I think that the Canadian political right is an extremely uncatered to sector of our country, and like the National Post and Rebel Media are like the only two right-leaning media organizations in Canada, and the National Post is like full of constant boomerism, and yeah, I dislike the Rebel Media. I feel like they think I'm an idiot whenever I tune into their podcasts. Not their podcasts. Like they make YouTube videos, right? I don't think they make like nightly news. I shouldn't have said broadcast. Whenever I watch them, I feel talked down to. I feel like they think I'm an idiot, and yeah, I don't think that they accurately advocate for the views of the Canadian right.
In fact, when it comes to actual like percentage
I also would not want to work for them either.
of wealth
Much rather work for the National Post.
that goes back to its citizenry in a meaningful way, I think New York is fairly
Not that either people would hire me.
in line with a lot of other large cities, including some
What do you think about the Rebel Media, man?
Republican-run ones. But we don't have those discussions about.
And like when I say give them a fair shot, like I asked people I knew who listened to them what I should listen to, and I asked people I knew who listened to them who they listen to, and like I go to their YouTube channel and I like look at the shows that they have, and I like listen to a couple of episodes, like one from each of the people that were working there. This is like two or 3 years ago now, and 2 or 3, I'd say 2017, 2018, and yeah, they made me feel like they thought I was an idiot, and they feel like did not accurately represent the state or news in Canada.
Those cities.
Well, how are they comparable to Republicans?
I'd give him a second shot though, and if you followed me or subscribed and had some had some Rebel Media content that we could watch on stream, I would definitely watch it with you.
With regards to these cities, like in terms of the
Feel free to link some.
proportion of the.
I would totally check it out. Like I'm not joking. Although if you want me to check it out, you gotta follow or subscribe. It's true.
City and how it's used, how it's distributed. New York isn't like some magic sinkhole. It's a very large city, but there are other cities that are in comparable spots.
I think the big challenge, I guess, is Trump is looking at it from the perspective of, and I can only assume.
Oh, hey man,
why
thank you
is
so
a
much.
citizen of
They
Wyoming
make my
gonna
day.
pay for what New York is doing?
You gotta sell hard. You gotta sell hard on Twitch, and you're my 20th follower, by the way. So thank you so much. 20 is a big number.
We all
If,
Poser for life.
So do you
Now
know what happened
following.
with
Awesome.
Cuomo and the nursing homes?
Yeah, but we've been paying for
Thanks, man.
Wyoming for like a century, though.
Yeah, but there's like, it's way less.
Because
So
there are
I
less
get
people
it.
in Wyoming. I mean,
Right. So the issue is Andrew Cuomo puts sick people in nursing homes. People die.
I'm not going to defend that.
No,
Yeah,
right.
no.
But like
20th, yeah, man.
the problems were
Tell your friends.
caused by them.
I don't know. You seem like a pretty interesting guy. If you're interested, I don't know. This is such a crazy project trying to find the political philosophy of the future, especially the way I'm going about it. But do I get a prize? I wish I could give you a prize. Oh, third person just tuned in. Hey man, thanks for tuning in. How's your evening going? We're here with Vaush. We're here with Tim Pool. We're here talking about the Rebel Media.
I mean,
Sure, but
and they're.
How's
like,
your night going?
but it's the same
I'll
with
be honest.
Wyoming, right? You could say the same thing. Like, well, why is Wyoming as a
Oh, so we gotta go back. Let's go back a minute. Let's go back 2 minutes.
relative power? Corporations get everything when it comes to the delegation of
Okay, yeah.
interest from politicians. You know.
I think you're right, but I think we need one of the problems with government is that what do you do when it goes bad? When the government programs are no longer working properly, when the teachers are no longer teaching, when the schools are broken, do we just keep putting money into it, keep spending tax, or do we finally cut it off and say, we got to shut it down, turn it off, turn it back on again? Because
Yeah, and tenure in the American public school system. Be a really good idea. Oh, yeah. I totally hear what you're saying, man. Like, I think that there is a huge gap in CBC, CTV, and global news, and the right-wing political staff. Like, let's say that 60... I would go as far to say that 50 to 65% of Canadians are, like, liberal-leaning or American Democratic-leaning voters. And there's a huge portion of this country that is completely uncatered to in the media space. Rebel and National Post are the only people that even try. And one of the reasons why the Canadian right is so bad at communicating is because we don't have any of that infrastructure like the Canadian left has. And it's one of the things that let the Canadian left It's just what lets them seize control of the narrative so effectively on all the things that Canadian right wants to organize around. Like, I was going to talk about the Freedom Convoy, but I don't want to talk about the politics of the Freedom Convoy until later, just like I said earlier on stream about COVID-19. A much better example is how quickly the Canadian media establishment got Canadians to ignore all of Trudeau's ethics violations. Like, they spent so little time on that. And yeah, we got to do better, man. We got to do better. So yeah, thank you for following. You just, in your own small way, contributed to widening the amount of people that can hear a different opinion on the right. That was not very eloquent. Rebel gets criticized for being right-leaning, as if the rest of the major media outlets aren't on a side or lean to the left. Yeah, I think you got. I think you got from what I just said that I strongly agree with what you just said.
Whatever we're doing isn't working.
Sure, but denying New York City money during a pandemic isn't going to functionally change the way its government operates. It's only going to hurt people.
Correct. 100% correct from Vaush here.
I think that, and also just from a functional perspective, it also bolsters democratic political will. If you're not interested in seeing that happen, seeing the president hold his hands up and let cities wilt because of some presumption of poor city management. It's certainly not just New York. In fact, when it comes to actual percentage of wealth that goes back to its citizenry in a meaningful way, I think New York is fairly in line with a lot of other large cities, including some Republican run ones. But we don't have those discussions about those cities.
How are they comparable to Republicans?
With regards to of some presumption of poor city management. It's certainly not just New York. In fact, when it comes to actual percentage of wealth that goes back to its citizenry in a meaningful way, I think New York is fairly in line with a lot of other large cities, including some Republican run ones. But we don't have those discussions about those cities.
How are they comparable to Republicans?
With regards to these cities, in terms of the proportion of the money that goes into the city and how it's used, how it's distributed, New York isn't some magic sinkhole. It's a very large city, but there are other cities that are in comparable spots.
I think the big challenge, I guess, is Trump is looking at it from the perspective of, and I can only assume, I don't know, why is a citizen of Wyoming going to pay for what New York is doing?
We all
Look, so
Come on, Timothy. I don't know if his name's Timothy. Come on, Tim. Really? This is your strongest critique of this isn't even a critique. This is Federalist Papers basic question.
do you know what happened with Cuomo and the nursing homes?
Yeah, but we've been paying for...
The disease is going to go to Wyoming no matter what, dude. You really need to stop the New Yorkers from getting it. Come on, man.
For a century, though.
Yeah, but there's
Also, yeah, the pandemic is the worst place to frame this federal versus federal money allocation issue. The coronavirus or a pandemic is the one case where everyone needs lots of money.
It's way, way, way less.
Because
So
there are
I
less
get it.
people in Wyoming.
Right. So the issue is Andrew Cuomo puts sick people in nursing homes. People die.
I'm not going to defend that.
No, right.
no.
But the problems were caused by that.
What? So therefore, because the response was incompetent, that we should give up on the response? That's such an idiotic criticism.
You know what I mean?
Sure, but...
And they're
But it's the same
I'll
with
be honest.
Wyoming, right? You could say the same thing. Why is Wyoming as a state so poor? Why does it have to take so much federal money compared to what it earns in taxes? Well, what are those governors doing? What are those city mayors doing? We just never have those conversations. Every time it comes to talk about the responsibility of city government, we always focus it on democratic-run strongholds, which is in part because cities tend to be more democratic for a number of really complicated sociological reasons, but also because I don't think we want to acknowledge the fact that this poor city management thing isn't a Democrat problem. There's a functional rot in the way this country treats its citizens, and that operates everything from county all up to the national level. And I wish when we had that conversation, it was less partisan, less about getting owns for one or the other, because I can tell you, if Biden wins, and I hope he does, I hope to spend the next 4 years ruthlessly criticizing him and everyone who supports him on these same fundamental points.
Right.
Because
Yeah, I hate to find myself agreeing so much with Vaush, but that was what the heck was that's such a facile, childish, idiotic criticism from Tim Pool. Andrew Cuomo abdicated his responsibility as governor and should have resigned earlier. And he didn't even resign for basically committing multiple acts of manslaughter. like dozens of acts of manslaughter at least as governor. He resigned over a sexual assault scandal or a sexual harassment scandal, or was it funding, or like campaign finance? It was not due to his government response. But yeah, Vaush is completely right here, and I don't recall enough of what he said about the differences between Democrats and Republicans. Like, I'm not sure if which party is better at returning tax revenue to its citizens. Like, I'm not really sure how important of a political metric that really is.
They do matter to me, and I agree. New York City is in a lot of ways a irresponsibly run.
I want to ask you about Biden, but I feel like we kind of glossed over
Such a good
before.
topic.
You mentioned Fauci and
I love talking about Biden.
threats of violence from the right and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The general idea you're saying is that Trump and the right have like fervent supporters of them that are ultra nationalists and willing to be violent.
Yeah, I would say more so than the left, at least if we look at like FBI data and crime statistics and such.
So this past year, how many like pro-Trump things have happened where, you know, like pro-Trump groups have gone out and committed mass acts of violence or targeted people or killed people or anything like that?
I can't tell you if I remember the number. I will say though, it's not.
You gotta check out an amazing vid. Is it from Rebel?
I mean,
We can do it for sure, man.
the most thing that immediately comes to mind would probably be the Michigan governor kidnapping, and you could argue.
Let's get to an hour in the stream, which is just coming right up, and then I will do a little cut and we'll check out your
Those
video.
guys went right wing.
Well, they were. I mean, that one guy was.
Or let's get to 30 minutes. Okay, yeah. What's the video? Is it about politics? One second. What do we got here? Oh, first of all, I got a YouTube ad because I'm on not YouTube Premium. When bros watch too much Jordan Peterson. Is it like a skit? We'll watch it in a bit.
They said he was an anarchist, but he was
Whoa,
posting
whoa.
memes about killing commies on Facebook, so he definitely wasn't left wing.
Some of them were. I think this is one of the things where it gets really complicated.
Yeah,
But these guys are clearly just anti-government. I mean,
Sure, I will, but I mean, and then they went after a Democratic governor who was being very heavily targeted by the right, and they seemed to.
doesn't mean
reflect
they're
a lot-
right wing.
Hello?
They were reflecting a lot of the rhetoric
Oh, no,
that was
okay, we're
being
good.
used, and some of the people there, pretty sure they were MAGA hats. I would need to look back.
They were at Black Lives Matter protests, actually, two of the guys. So I'm not going to pretend those guys were left wing. They were just crazy, like anarchists. Like the guy actually.
I as an anarchist, I thoroughly disavow. They were
Yeah.
they were ANCAPs. They were a very different.
I don't even know
breed.
if they were ANCAPs though. Like they were marching with Black Lives Matter. They clearly have some of their social values aligning with leftist groups.
Ideologically idiosyncratic, perhaps.
But I'm not going to call them leftists. I think it's absurd. The media says these are right wing militias or whatever, and it's like it's a bunch of crazy guys. You'll see a Trump rally. The people in Trump rallies aren't going around attacking people.
Well,
The-
yeah,
the-
that's a little bit simplistic, though, isn't it? I mean, again, political violence, terrorist attacks, these always represent a
Oh, hey,
very
thanks for
small
tuning in, man.
fraction of actual
How's your afternoon going?
at any
Well, how's your evening going this evening here? I don't know if it's evening where you are. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for tuning in.
given point in time.
Absolutely.
Here with Vaush, here with Tim.
Since we started talking right now, probably you could chalk up 50,
How's your evening
people who
going?
died in this country to some sort of pharmaceutical
Yeah.
or,
Oh,
or
yeah,
military
totally.
or something like that.
Food
But-
induced.
Opioids, man.
But I'll be waiting a while until I get to see the next news story about like a terrorist attack. I just when I'm concerned about far right violence, I'm less concerned with like the individual terror attacks and more concerned with the fact that their actions seem to reflect a disposition prominent in the Republican Party. Whereas with Antifa, for example, nobody in the Democratic Party is going to defend Antifa. I'll defend Antifa,
That was really interesting.
but they
Wait.
I wish I paid closer attention.
Wait. Has any Democrat disavowed Antifa?
didn't Biden say he would arrest the anarchists and looters?
He has never said Antifa or Black Lives Matter extremists.
Well, what is a Black Lives Matter extremist?
The people in Portland who are wearing Black Lives Matter sweaters and waving flags and throwing explosives at cops.
Sure.
Wearing sweaters, waving flags, throwing explosives. One of those things is very different from the others.
Well, I mean, I think he said anarchists and looters.
Waving a flag, not extremist behavior. What did he say? Wearing a costume? Throwing explosives at cops. That is extremist behavior, but...
pretty sure there's been firm disavowal of people who have committed violence against the
He's
cops.
disavowed.
But, oh yeah, no. We're about to hear Vaush do the classic 2020, mostly peaceful deflection over all the stuff that happened. And defund the police and Black Lives Matter and how nothing happened on the policy front. But yeah, Vaush is gonna defend. Vaush is gonna defend all the violence.
So he said violence is wrong, and these people should be arrested. And then when asked, like, will you condemn? What about Antifa? He doesn't say it. Then he yells at the Proud Boys. So
At least he didn't tell them to stand back and stand by.
I think I would.
I think it's
pretty sure I remember that him going over that. I know, like Antifa
He's-
doesn't have
At least Joe Biden didn't tell Antifa to stand back and stand by.
like a base of support amongst the Democratic Party. It tends to be very far left.
All right, we're at an hour on the stream. We're at 29 minutes. We got 40
what about
seconds.
Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and their cohorts?
They're soak Dems. I mean, they're left leaning compared to America, but if you put them in Europe, they'd be considered center left politicians. I
But-
love
but
them.
we're
Don't
not-
get me wrong, but
I mean,
That was a joke. CNN reporter saying morally peaceful as things are burning all around him. Yeah, man. I'm with you to a pretty large extent there. American mainstream media really glossed over the violence and the public damage. Like I said, I'm not sure if you were on here earlier, but an American journalistic organization, the Foundation for Economic Education, which not a journal, not an academic thing. Just this is like a journalistic organization with a YouTube channel and a website. Said, but they did some research, and apparently they found that the 2020 Black Lives Matter riots were the most expensive race riots in United States history. So more than the LA riots, more than the riots after MLK's assassination, more than any of the riots or demonstrations that took place after any other unjustified police killings in United States history. It was crazy. It went on for so long, and Tim has a point here. The American left did not do a good job at disavowing the violent elements of those protests. They mostly just defended them as mostly peaceful, and I think that's completely insufficient. And what really highlighted the complete insufficiency of the mostly peaceful defense was January 6th, which, I was just talking about earlier on stream, I just finished watching the January 6th hearings, the first day of the January 6th hearings, and, geez, January 6th sure was a mostly peaceful protest, eh? 95% of the people that were there didn't hurt anybody, and they were just there demonstrating, and it was mostly peaceful. Only 100 people, really. No, more than 100 people got in the building, and I'm not trying to minimize that. I think it's one of the worst things that happened in American history, but it was a mostly peaceful protest. Just like the billions of dollars of damage that took place over the United States in the name of mostly peaceful protests, in the name of George Floyd's death.
when you start
Please consider following.
talking about Europe and the U.S., left and right becomes rather meaningless. Because I know we're talking about
And now the leaders of BLM are profiting off of the movement to the tune of tens of millions. I've heard that. I haven't done any investigation around it. Yeah, I've just only heard headlines that Black Lives Matter founders have gotten in hot water over how they spent money that was donated to their organizations, but I don't know which founders, and I don't know how much. I don't want to comment on it. And that's why the meme of BLM equals buy large mansions is accurate. I don't know about that. Pretty sure. Come on, man.
revolution versus status quo? Are we talking about economic policy? Are
Sure,
we
well-
talking about cultural policy?
I think it's fair to say that if you look at Ilhan Omar or AOC, they're probably not on the revolutionary side of the argument, just judging by the career paths they've chosen. But the Antifa people
Touche, Vaush. Touche.
are almost to a man going to be.
Are we in a recession? Says Notabud. Well, first of all, where are you from, Notabud? Are you American? Are you Canadian? That kind of depends. Also depends how you define recession. Boy, I would say the economy is not doing good, and it doesn't look like it's gonna do better in the future. I'm not one of those frickin' neolibs that carries water for the Trudeau government and Biden administration and just says that the population is confused about the economy and that they should look at the unemployment rate. It's not. The economy is not doing well right now, and doesn't look like inflation is going to go away, and it doesn't look like we are going to be able to raise interest rates, and it doesn't look like the war in Ukraine is going to stop. So it's going to be a bad time out there. Patrice Cullors, Cullors, I don't know, is one of the main ones. She's the person who said that they are trained Marxists. Yeah, I've also heard that quote said about BLM a lot. Okay, just checking your sanity level. Well, hey man, if you want to know more about me and my level of sanity, please consider checking out the YouTube channel that I have linked below. I am writing a political platform for the province of Alberta, and we're talking about the Alberta oil industry in the first episode, and next episode, which will be released this month, we're talking about an environmental plan. Also, if you want to learn more about my politics, I have I took an 8 values political test. It's also on that YouTube channel. Please check it out. Oh, you love Alberta oil? Well, you should check out my YouTube channel. You're in Ontario? Yeah, you should check out my YouTube channel, and you should consider following on Twitch if you want to learn more about my politics and more about
Very far left, very
Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Hope you have a good day.
Anti-establishment.
And yeah, please consider following.
Are probably as disgusted by the Democrats as they are the Republicans.
So a lot of people like to bring up Antifa all the time. And when, like, a lot of the stuff we saw in Portland, I've actually said repeatedly, stop calling them Antifa.
Am I following the differential? I've never heard of that organization. Could you tell me more about them or provide me a link?
They're wearing Black Lives Matter sweaters. They're flying flags that say Black Lives Matter. They have plastic shields that say Black Lives Matter on it. The way I explain it to people is, if you go to a large group of people and say, how many of you want to protest in the name of Antifa or anti-fascism, whatever, you'll get a decent people saying yes.
The WCS differential. I've never heard of that.
If you go to the average person, a group of people, and say, how many of you want to go protest for Black Lives Matter, more of them will say yes. So I definitely think you have people who were previously flying the Antifa flag, now flying Black Lives Matter. But you have way more people joining in the ranks of that violence in the name of Black Lives Matter, which is funded through Act Blue, which is the...
Alberta Oil sells at a discount. It's called the differential. Oh, the Western Crude Standard differential? Is that what the WCS is? I am aware that Alberta Oil sells at a differential. My girlfriend actually took a course in petroleum economics, and so I absorbed a little bit of it from her. Western Canadian Select. See, I can't remember what I said, but it sounded weirdly similar, didn't it?
Democrats fund...
Oh, didn't I say Western Canadian Standard? Yeah, that was weird.
...raising platform has been routinely supported by almost every, I would say every national Democrat.
Anyway, yeah, if you want to learn more about my politics and you want to try and freaking find the political philosophy of the future, please consider following me on Twitch and checking my YouTube channel. I'm going to stop pitching you now.
Politician.
My problem is that this is the exact same logic that people use to condemn the civil rights protesters of the 1960s. Anytime you have a...
I missed that. We're going to have to go back. That sounded important.
A lot of people like to bring up Antifa all the time. And when, like, a lot of the stuff we saw in Portland, I've actually said repeatedly, stop calling them Antifa. They're wearing Black Lives Matter sweaters. They're flying flags that say Black Lives Matter. They have plastic shields that say Black Lives Matter on it.
Nah, I'm not with Tim here.
The way I explain it to people is, if you...
Oh, damn, we got 5 people. Hey, guys, thanks for tuning into the stream. Hope you have a great night.
Go to a large group of people and say, how many of you want to protest...
Here with Vaush, here with Tim. Please feel free to tell me where you're tuning in from. Tell me how your day's going.
...in the name of Antifa.
Tell me what you think about Vaush. 80% of the people who tune into the stream tune in to shit on Vaush, like say... What do we open today's stream with? Vaush, professor of sophistry at Wikipedia U. Feel free to drop your Vaush insults in the chat.
Or anti...
Also, please consider following and check out my YouTube channel.
Fascism, whatever. You'll get a decent people saying yes.
If you want to learn more about Canadian politics.
If you go to the average person,
or myself,
for people,
I'm done pitching. Thank you.
And say, how many of you want to go protest for Black Lives Matter? More of them will say yes. So I definitely think you have people.
Oh, sorry, I have to comment on what Tim just said there. Yeah, I think that Tim is completely full of shit. I think that it's a very useful division between Black Lives Matter protesters who are violent and Black Lives Matter protesters is Antifa. I definitely think that, like, in that Venn diagram, I think that the amount of violent Black Lives Matter protesters that don't support Antifa is, like, very low. I think that all the violent Black Lives Matter supporters identify themselves as anti-fascists. I don't think that you should pitch myself 3 times in 2 minutes.
Who were previously flying that...
Hey, man, give me a break. I only have 20 followers.
The flag, now flying Black Lives Matter.
What did you say? Al-Kifa? Oh, I see. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that on stream, man. What are you trying to get me to do?
In the ranks of that violence in the name of Black Lives Matter, which is funded through Act Blue, which is the Democrats' fundraising platform, has been routinely supported by almost every, I would say every national Democratic.
Oh yeah, also, if you look at the polling, at one time, at the peak of its support, 87% of Americans supported the statement Black Lives Matter. Like, that's one of the things that was a really good part of that slogan, is it's really difficult to oppose it. So, like I said earlier, it amounted to 0 policy changes, and that's like something that's absolutely tragic and horrific. It's something that really should piss off people on the left and the right, that nothing came out of that. Oh, just a little play on Antifa. The way Vaush speaks is rather creative, like a middle school student who watches too much anime. I would actually say that Vaush is pretty well spoken. I would also say that he is much more well spoken with Tim than he is by himself. If you look at the title of the stream, this is the 4th episode of Streamer Lore. We've spent 4 2.5 hour episodes, I think, with Vaush now, and they are. He's much better, much more articulate in this episode than he was in the previous 3. Although I'm much less articulate than I was in the first 3. So thanks for putting up with me, folks, and please consider following, checking my YouTube channel, and learning more about Canadian politics.
Politician.
My problem is that this is the exact same logic that people use to condemn.
Vaush uses a lot of words to say nothing. A lot of people have said that. Like I said, Professor of Sophistry at Wikipedia U said that. Hoser for Life said that.
The civil rights protesters of the 1960s. Anytime you have a lot.
Now you just have to say you just have to state you support the BLM movement because no one supports the organization. Well, what's the difference between the Black Lives Matter movement and the Black Lives Matter organization? Like, it's likely, I'm not gonna say I'm sure, it's likely that we're actually gonna end up asking the same question about Antifa right here from Vaush. Because there's this, in my opinion, super irritating, frequent leftist or liberal deflect that Antifa is not a party or organization, it's a movement, and therefore its members can't be held accountable for the violence they perpetrate, and that's a complete disingenuous bad faith deflection. It's definitely an organization insofar that it commits political violence. Unacceptable political violence.
A lot of civil unrest. There are going to be groups at different.
You don't support Black Lives Matter. Anyone who feels the need to tell themselves that Black Lives Matter, the organization buys mansions with support donations. With supporting donations. Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Levels of radicalization that get involved. Most of the civil rights protesters, ye back in day 50, 60 years ago, probably boomers, just like middle class, fairly progressive, black or non-black people who just wanted to see their rights achieved. And amongst those people, there have always been socialists and anarchists and much more left-leaning people, and sometimes those groups, or sometimes even the regular moderate folk, will clash with the police. And the problem is that when we focus on this violence, especially with a movement as large as Black Lives Matter, which, if judging by the number of people who participated in these rallies goes, the largest civil rights protest in all of American history, when we start saying, like, well, these few people threw rocks at cops here...
It produced nothing. It's so disappointing, isn't it? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
About fractions of millions of people.
Like, he's bragging that it's the largest civil rights protest in America. It's the least effective civil rights protest in American history, I think, without question.
So I'd like to say Black Lives Matter as a movement is, with Biden, reformist and generally quite nonviolent as protests go. And then amongst them, are there more radical people?
I noticed on Twitter that anarchists wanted stricter mandates to piss people off. Like stricter Twitter rules or what?
Absolutely. But I'll even defend, to an extent, radical action when it comes to protesting against injustice like this.
Do you know how many people last year, how many
COVID rules,
black men were shot and killed by police?
It was like a unarmed black men?
Unarmed black men shot and killed by police.
Somewhere between 20 and 40, I don't remember
13.
exact. 13.
Do you, but I would want to be clear. It's unarmed black men shot and killed. There are instances, like George Floyd was not shot and killed. But it seems like if you have an estimated 375 million interactions with police, if we're having double digits of unjust killings, it's not so much a widespread problem, but just areas where we need to hold people accountable.
Sure.
And I definitely think police are often not held accountable for sure. But does that warrant millions of people, protesting? Does that warrant like changing banners at every single park, every major corporation adopting these slogans? Does it?
Maybe instead of changing the banners and renaming the streets, we end qualified immunity, increase police funding, federalize training along with that increased funding, and have universal body cameras. How about that? How about instead of Black Lives Matter, we do any of those things?
Warrant street paintings with tax.
By the way, don't increase police funding unless you want to federalize the training protocols. I know I said those two things separately, but I did not mean them separately. Increasing police funding is not a good solution. Increasing police funding is a part of the solution, but increasing police funding by itself is not a good solution to the failures of policing in America in 2022, and they are manifold. How do I feel about Justin Trudeau's gun grab? Oh man, it's some of it's getting me, man. Some of it's getting me. I'll tell you. The thing that annoys me the most is definitely the magazine capacity restriction to 4 or 5. I can't remember which one they chose, but geez, dude, this is the North American West. The least you can do is give me 6 shots in my gun. Come on, man. 4 shots before you have to reload a gun? It's hard. I don't know. I haven't shot a lot of guns. I've only shot 2 guns, and like for less than 2 hours. But geez, come on. Trudeau, aka Castro's kid. You're not the first person. Oh no. I was about to say you're not the first person to say that. You probably came in here 17 days ago or whatever, 2 weeks ago, talking about how Trudeau is Castro's kid. You're probably the guy that I remember talking about that.
Taxpayer dollars and then using police to protect it. Does it warrant those who would commit violence in their name for 140 plus days?
Well,
and will any of the Democrats call them out?
Well, the corporations and the politicians doing all of that is just. I'm trying not to use the term virtue signaling. They're doing it because it makes them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. But I'm not going to defend corporations who are throwing up like the black, app icon for 30 days. Then they throw it up. Of course. But they're only doing that to appeal to a.
Municipal governments are the governments that rename the streets. Like, municipal governments are the governments that should have, instead of renaming the streets, reviewed their police policies. Like, there's so many things that could have been done instead. And Black Lives Matter was terrible at advocating for those alternative policies. Like, so terrible that it makes me question. It makes me question what their organization was even about. That so little got accomplished.
Popular narrative, but I'm not going to defend their virtue.
I don't really see it. Like, I feel like they literally look similar. I feel like Justin Trudeau doesn't have the complexion to be the son of Castro. Add that Justin's parents were swingers back in the day. Yeah, like I said, I don't think that Justin Trudeau has the complexion to be the son of Castro. Among many other reasons, he probably isn't the son of Castro.
Dude, their CEOs could be racist. They could be not. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. They'll do whatever makes them money. When it comes to like the protest itself, you have to recognize that the police killings of unarmed black men are very much the tip of an iceberg, even a glacier here, where that is the most easily and objectively verifiable injustice.
Oh, this is the other thing I was going to say. Yeah, this is the other thing I was going to say. Tim was talking about how only 13 unarmed black Americans were killed by police in 2020. By the way, only 13. If you want to hear all the numbers and relevant statistics, especially related to 2020 numbers and interactions with the police, Sam Harris did a fantastic episode after the death of George Floyd, or around that time, probably around this time actually. And it was just a treasure trove of statistics. Sam Harris is a very qualified intellectual and a very qualified researcher, and he just spends like an hour talking about the like statistical minutia, not just providing one statistic, but comparing them among states, like doing so many different things. Maybe not comparing them among states. I listened to this podcast like 3 years ago, but I listened to it 3 times. I remember being extremely informative. I like to thank comedy for turning me into a filthy centrist. The left and the right, different content, very similar behavior. Interesting, man. Justin Blackface Trudeau.
I think a lot.
Hey, do you live in the GTA, Hosen for Life? Do you live in the Greater Toronto Area? Are you like in the? Do you live close to the St. Lawrence River? Like, your conservative vote might be really important where it is, man.
A lot of people recognize. Not great. Brianna.
Like, my vote's worthless out here in Alberta, but you can like, your vote actually matters voting against the Liberal Party in Ontario.
Taylor, likewise. But underneath all of that, those.
Do you mean when you say not great, like those stories were not clear-cut acts of? Like, what do you mean by that?
No, I mean that they're very easy things to protest against, because I think
I disagree.
You think.
Sorry, we gotta go back, folks.
That's the thing. But I'm not going to defend corporations who are throwing up like the black app icon for 30 days. Then they throw it up. Of course. But they're only doing that to appeal to a popular narrative. But I'm not going to defend their virtue. Their CEOs could be racist. They could be not. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. They'll do whatever makes them money. When it comes to like the protest itself, you have to recognize that the police killings of unarmed black men are very much the tip of an iceberg, even a glacier here, where that is the most easily and objectively verifiable injustice. Like George Floyd, I think a lot of people recognize. Not great. Breonna Taylor, likewise. Mm-hmm. But underneath all of that, those...
Do you mean when you say not great, like those stories were not clear-cut acts of... Like, what do you mean by that?
No, I mean that they're very easy things to protest against, because I think...
I disagree.
You think that the George Floyd thing was like people should see that and go like, you know?
I think when the George Floyd thing happened, I covered it shocked that we had a video of this cop kneeling on this guy for 8 minutes, and I think it was like, was it 43 seconds or whatever?
8 minutes and 43 seconds. Jeez, I forget. It's easy to forget how long that was.
That shouldn't have happened, but more information
8
comes out
minutes. Jeez.
later. So I recognize that protest. I do. But
I don't think any info
nasty.
came out that made that any less horrible.
that
though.
he had fentanyl in his system, a lethal dose of fentanyl, and that when the body camera footage got released, he's actually kicking his way out of the car saying, please hold me on the ground, hold me on the ground.
So I have to push back against this. He would not have died if that knee had not been on his neck.
Yeah.
It is the degree. To
That's
which
what I think. I'm
fentanyl
pretty
is-
sure. I've never heard what Tim just said. I've never heard that that George said that. Would you mind switching over to my link? Oh shit, man! Sorry. We'll watch that right now. Sorry, we'll watch that right now, and I think we'll just call it there. I'm getting a little bit tired. Here you go. Okay. Sorry about that, man. Hey, thank you so much for reminding me, and thank you for following me. By the way, if you want me to watch anything, feel free to follow, drop a link, and we can check it out later on stream. As long as it's not like crazy. And yeah, I think this is where we'll end the stream today.
Bro,
Well, do you want me to react to this, like pausing, or do you just want me to watch this? I'm just gonna lean with watching. I hate it when people pause things too much.
what are you reading?
Is this book someone gave me? 12 Rules for Life? You ever read it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's kind of making me think, bro.
Dude, you hungry? You wanna order a pizza?
There's a fine line between order and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bro, what size pizza you want?
I don't know, small, medium, doesn't matter.
No, let's get precise. Let's get precise.
This is a pretty good impression.
So,
Well, okay, medium, cheese, onion, like pepperoni, mushroom, and and lobster.
yes.
Okay. Well,
So, bro, what'd you get up to this weekend?
well,
Up straight, shoulders back.
thank you. What didn't I get up to? I thought I would seek an adventure because life is about adventure.
Yes.
So I went down to Soho to this new nightclub called the Jelly Bean. It's like 5-hour line. Man,
I'll tell you this. Sorry, I'll try to pause less, but I've gone to a Jordan Peterson event. My family, I purchased the ticket. My family actually purchased the ticket. I went. It was an interesting time. I'll talk about it later. What I want to talk about, speaking of going out to a nightclub, is after this event, there was like an after. I thought it was an after party. It was not really an after party at a bar across from the theater. Me and one other guy were the only people that drank. There were like 30 people there, and they all like had sodas and just chatted. It was like a bunch of incels, and me and this like 40-year-old engineer. And yeah, well, I had a fun night with that guy, but yeah, not a fun vibe with those people. They were all like incels. It was weird.
it was colder than some nights at the Gulag. So, I walk in and it's like there's people everywhere, and it's like I have to sort of figure out what is this? I have to sort of map out the meaning. And it's like, you won't believe it, but this supermodel comes up to me and she goes, "Do you want to come back to my hotel room and have
Also, this guy's impression is much weaker than the first guy's.
sex with me?" I was like bloody blown away, I'm thinking like, well, sure, I want to go get some quick, meaningless, pleasure, but it's like, where is it going to lead?
Well, you could just try foreplay. This works a lot.
Well, I could do a little foreplay and just leave it at that,
A little of that. Yes.
or like this, or some of that,
The gestures are
I'm
close.
falling in love with this woman. I'm like, I've known her for 5 bloody seconds. It's like I'm projecting my mother's ideal of the perfect woman on this supermodel. It's like, no.
No.
So I told her to screw off. I went home, read some Jung, and fell asleep, And I got some pleasure out of that, So,
Well, that sounds like not a wasteful evening, to say the least.
by the way, bro, you're like totally jacked. Like, how much weight have you been lifting?
For a long time, I was really trying to lift the maximum weight I could bear, It's not simple, it's not, because
Okay, I'm calling it with this video. This is a good bit, but I don't think it's that funny. All right. Oh, Jeer, we got it all here. George Floyd, what a controversial subject. What always gets buried is the cause of death. The part where it was supposed to be about race and it clearly wasn't. Leftist humor. It's funny because of other people's content. Well, it's funny to someone. I haven't garnered so much as a chuckle from leftist quote-unquote humor. He keeps going between Jordan Peterson and Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. Okay. So we're going to go from Jordan Peterson to George Floyd before we close the stream. George Floyd, what a controversial subject. What always gets buried is the cause of death. Yeah, Tim Pool was just saying that. I didn't know about this quote-unquote apparently lethal dose of fentanyl that was in his system. Yeah. Do you genuinely think that Derek Chauvin just stepped on his neck? Because, like, why? I definitely think race was a primary factor in the death and arrest of George Floyd. Yeah, come on, man. Are we going to get back to this? We'll watch this for 5 more minutes.
This system is something of a matter of contention. There are people
I definitely think it was about race. Come on, man. The entire country erupted. You don't think it was about race?
who say that it was a lethal amount. There are people who say that it was, while a
Also, thank you so much for following me, and thank you for sending me that video. I'm sorry I didn't think it was as funny as maybe you did.
substantial amount, something that was decreasing or indicative of a previous dose, and that his death was directly caused from constriction of his airflow. While I am not a doctor, I do think the undisputed sort of decision here is that it was because he was kneeled upon.
Did you watch the body camera footage?
Yeah, I don't think that changed anything.
Where he's saying,
was
"Hold
high
me
out
on
of
the
his-
ground, hold me on the ground, hold me on the ground"
by
3
his-
times.
Ugh, I didn't even think I subjected myself to all of the like proper footage. By the way, like I think maybe I only watched half of it. Like just hearing that it was 8 minutes and 43 seconds was definitely enough for me. I would maybe even say I only watched 2 minutes of it. Like it's not something that I would like recommend to people to watch. Derek Chauvin knew George Floyd and didn't like him. Race wasn't a factor. I see. I've heard that. Wait, didn't Derek Chauvin plead guilty? Did he plead guilty to a hate crime, or what did he plead guilty to? Because if he pled guilty to a hate crime, then race was evidently a primary factor by his own admission. Let's see. Pleads guilty in court to violating George Floyd's civil rights, according to CNN. Maybe we'll go for a different CNN for the guilty plea. Sorry, different NPR says from the Associated Press, so like a more non-biased source than usual. Pleaded guilty to 20 to 25 years. The white former officer admitted he willfully deprived Floyd of his right to be free from unreasonable seizure, including unreasonable force by a police officer. So it doesn't look like he pled guilty to a hate element. Just looks like murder. Well, that would be intentional murder, though. Like, not manslaughter, I think. Yeah. So, second degree? I can't remember which degree is intentional murder. It's not manslaughter, though. 22.5-year sentence. Appeal conviction. So he didn't plead guilty to a racial element. I still think there was a racial element there, man. And, like, what did he know George Floyd from? Like, if I remember correctly, he was, what was it? Like, Derek Chauvin was a bouncer at a club that George Floyd went to, and they had an altercation, like, several years, I think, before their interaction. I don't think that Chauvin remembered him. Like I said, I could totally be wrong, though. I don't remember. However, for leftists, it has to be about race, because then it would be 2 years worth of wasted narratives. Yeah, man, I gotta say, I respectfully disagree with you there, but I'm sure we'll talk about it more later. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone who tuned into the stream. I think I maybe shot off a little bit too many hot takes in the past 90 minutes, but it's good to get my sea legs back. I will be streaming more frequently now. I think we're going to try and stick to a more daily schedule. Let's go back to this. My camera fell out of focus. I think we'll be going back to a daily schedule. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I hope you had a great day. I had a great day too. Sorry, I hope you had fun watching. I had fun making this. And yeah, if you're interested in learning more about Canadian or Albertan politics, please follow my YouTube channel. And yeah, have a great day. Okay, whoa. We'll finish this. People want the race element there because they like to shoehorn in the race element everywhere. When in reality, one side just wants the past to be. Yeah, I think that your analysis is too univariate there, man. We'll talk about race in America lots on this channel, but not right now. And maybe with some people more qualified to speak about it at some point. Definitely not me. I'm Canadian. All right. Anyway, have a wonderful day. I had fun making this. I hope you had fun watching. See you later. Please consider following, and if you want to learn more about Canadian politics, please check out my YouTube channel. Toodaloo.